She's back. Alright. Hey future OTs, it's Talia and welcome back to Endless Education. I'm sorry I've been away the past few weeks. Actually finished my last block placement last Friday, and so it's kind of been a whirlwind of, finishing up, packing up, kind of preparing for the next step. So I do have one more semester of university and then we graduate. So it's already kind of time to start looking at resumes, so CVs, cover letters, applying for jobs and all that. So I do plan on doing some final placement reflection videos, but for today I thought I would quickly answer a question that I got on a video. One thing I will say right off the bat that I'm enjoying after finishing placement is finally getting to wear dangly earrings again. Your girl needs dangly earrings in her life. Okay, so alright, so on to the question. I think this came from Rod, so thank you Rod for your question. Hope I'm saying that right. I mean, it's R-O-D. How wrong can I go? Probably pretty far. Alright, so here's Rod's question. Hi, I'm currently applying for OT. He wants to thank me for the vlogs. You're welcome, Rod. He's actually really nervous about the placements. He wants to know, did you feel like you got enough hands-on skills in classes or tutorials to make you feel confident to start your third and fourth year placements? And is there a high placement failure rate? And what happens if students fail their placements? Okay, so right off the bat, I'm just going to say that of course the most accurate information is probably going to come from each individual university with regards to failure rates and statistics like that, so I'm not gonna pretend that I know the exact rates or anything. But let's start with the first part of your question or your comment. Okay, so the first part was that you're nervous for placements and you're just applying for OT. Rod, it's okay, it's gonna be okay, I promise. So nervousness, anxiety, worry, we all have it. I don't think there's too many people, if at all anyone, who goes into placement going, yeah, I got this, I've done all the study, I've done everything I can, there's no way nothing's gonna go wrong, it's gonna be perfect. So I think everyone and their dog has worry and stress before going into placements. Even small fieldwork experiences that we have throughout my degree at least, it's nerve-wracking. We spend all this time reading these books, doing these exams, theories, models, the history, anatomy, physiology, to then be pushed into, the real world and be like, wait, I've read about this in a book, but how does this... So I feel like that transition from theory to actually doing is stressful. We can hide behind books for years and years and years, and we can memorize all these facts and all these, approaches to therapy and interventions, but half of it, if not more, is your actual therapeutic use of self, you as a clinician, how you act, how you educate, how you teach, how you collaborate, advocate, all these things that you can't necessarily demonstrate in answering a multi-choice exam. Maybe you can, I don't know. Especially there's going to be some stress or worry if it's something that's important to you. For most of us, we want to do well. We want to be the best clinician or therapist we can be. So walking into the hospital or going on placement, it's nerve-wracking. Maybe over the years, I hope it gets less and less with experience, and as you get older, you kind of chill out a bit more, not put so much pressure on yourself. It's kind of the first real test of, can I actually do this? Can I be a good clinician? Will I be a good therapist? And we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially when it can be so important to us as well. But I think it's important to realize that we can do all this studying, we can memorize all these textbooks, but half of it comes down to, our therapeutic use of self. So us as a clinician, how we, things like our tone of voice, our communication methods, where we position ourselves, there's a lot of things to it, but how we actually use ourselves and how we act and how we think, that doesn't just all come from reading a textbook. So it can feel like, and it kind of is a big jump from reading and going to lectures to actually them being put in the position of a therapist, being a student clinician, being a therapist. So that is stressful. I think we should just acknowledge the fact that it can be, it will be, but slowly as you gain more experience and you become more confident and comfortable in your style and who you are as a clinician, I mean, fingers crossed, I'm still a student, but I'm hoping it gets less stressful. Future Thalia here. I was just editing the video and I thought of something else I wanted to say. Don't mind me, it's real cold, so I'm back in my dressing gown. I think something I didn't say in the video was that it can be hard for us individually to actually recognize how much we know and how much we do grow over the years and through our placements, and that's why, you know, reflection as a student and then as a clinician and a therapist is, well, that's one of the reasons why it's so important. And I think during our we did a tutorial with one of our clinical educator liaison officers during our last week of my placement that I just finished last Friday, and we made the point of where we were handing over to 2 new students this in the last week of our placement, so, you know, showing them around, like what they were going to be taking over and what our experiences were and advice we were giving them. And it was during that week that it really highlights to us, wow, we do know a lot now. I remember our first week, we didn't know any of this and we were real stressed out, like, oh gosh, how are we going to know our way around? How are we not going to get lost? How are we going to run these groups, be confident, talk to all these patients, consumers, just get our head around all of this? You know, we were stressed the first week, and then it took that last week where we were teaching other people and for them to say, wow, you guys really know your stuff, for us to actually sit back and be like, yeah, you know what? We worked hard and I do know my stuff. It's not like I know nothing. I think we can be very critical of ourselves and, you know, compare ourselves to people who have been out there and have years of experience, or a 1 year ahead of us, or a semester ahead of us or something, and not realize how far we've come and how much experience we already do have. So I think it's giving yourself credit for, you know, I've worked hard these past few years and I'm passionate, I'm willing to give things a go, so there shouldn't really be a big reason why I'm not going to do well in this placement. So I hope that made some sense. Back to the video. And I know during my placements, of course, at the start, I'm just like, oh gosh, you know, I want to do well. Like, I was lucky enough to have both big placements in fields that I'm passionate about and then I would like to work in. So I think I put extra pressure on myself because I thought, you know, I really would like to go into mental health or pediatrics. So, oh gosh, if I can't even do well in this placement, that just must be, you know, a big sign that I'll never be able to make it as like an OT in mental health or anything. And that's just silly to put that kind of pressure on yourself. But of course, at the start, when it's those first few experiences of putting that theory into practice, it can be awkward, it can be clunky, it can be, oh, this is not how I was taught, that's not, I did an assignment on this and it's not happened in the exact same way, but I got good marks on that. But real life isn't a textbook. Real life isn't, you know, a case study. I mean, sometimes those case studies are actual case studies, so it was someone's journey, someone's experience, but not everyone's experience is exactly the same. I think especially in the mental health setting, my clinical educator made it very clear that, especially in this field, we learn through experience, and experience itself takes time. And of course, those theories, tutorials, workshops, all that is so important as well. Can you imagine? I could not imagine being like placed in a hospital or a placement setting my first day of my degree, not knowing anything, and even just shadowing. I'd be like, what's going on? What's OT? What is she talking about? What is he talking about? What's this PO? What's the CMRP? What's Kawa? What are rivers? Why are we talking out lakes and rivers? So I want to highlight that we need theory, we need all this stuff. And with our course, I kind of have liked the progression where we've had, you know, we started with a lot of theory, the basics, and then we've kind of had a progression of experiences, placement, practical experiences, where it's starting with communication skills between just us students, where then we had actors who simulated experience, then we had shorter experiences in like schools or hospitals, and then we had our big block placements. And of course, going from 1 or 2 days a week for a month field work experiences to 10 weeks full-time still is a big jump, but I felt that progression at least worked for me. So with regards to whether I felt I got enough like hands-on skills and all those things during like workshops and tutorials, I felt like I did. I felt like every few I felt that certain subjects or like courses gave you more opportunity for, you know, hands-on experience, so practicing those skills with each other, whether it's, you know, communicating with other colleagues in a multidisciplinary team, so practicing those conversations, like how you might bring something to the treating team or how you might bring up a disagreement. So practicing those kind of communication skills, we would practice within ourselves. For if we had a school program and we were kind of presenting to a group of kids, I know I would want to practice with my group beforehand. So I think some of it's up to you. Actually, I think a lot of it's up to you. I think your university will probably, hopefully, give you those opportunities to kind of practice the skills that they're teaching you within a tutorial setting, so with fellow students. And then we had some, you know, actual fieldwork experiences with the different populations, like kids, adults, older adults. But I think it's you actually making use of those opportunities. You could sit there and be like, yeah, no, I don't really want to like look silly and look awkward and practice this with you right now. You know, like waste the opportunity. But I don't know, I think it was kind of like a joke with my friends. I love a good old scenario role play, cracking out all the different accents and voices and personas, but also actually practicing in those opportunities. So when they give you a workshop where it's like, hey, we've got an hour, practice how you might, I don't know, talk to this older adult, or how you'll be culturally sensitive or show cultural humility. When they give you those times, use them, don't waste them. Because it's actually that time where you're making mistakes, saying things a million different ways because, oh, the first way it sounded stupid, or the next way I missed all these things. When you actually practice, you actually use that time, when it gets to the real thing, you're most likely going to be so much better, so much more eloquent than your first version. Does that make sense? It's like me when I film these things. I end up saying this 10 different ways, and even the final take that I edit in, it's just like, oh, woman, you should like script your videos. But then I feel like it'd be like too stilted, and yeah. So so if you're thinking this is frustrating to watch now, you would not be able to believe what it was like first take. So I think it's a mix of having those opportunities given to you. Yes, I felt I had them in my tutorials and workshops, etc. But it's actually you then making use of those opportunities and taking time out of, you know, your precious Netflix time sometimes and being like, you know what, I'm going to sit here in my room and practice this before my assessment, or I'm going to practice explaining what OT is to this wall or this door or this poster of Zac Efron. You know, use your time wisely. If you're passionate, if this is important to you, use your time. But also, like, don't push yourself, don't stress yourself. I know, easier said than done, but I just gotta say it. I guess that's the next part of your question. Did you feel like you got enough hands-on experience or hands-on skills in classes and tutorials to make you feel confident to start? So I don't think anything was really going to make me confident or like super confident before I started my placement. I think I was just always going to be putting that stress and pressure on myself. But I think once I kind of like chilled out and was like, you know what, I studied hard, I'm passionate about this, I feel comfortable in this dynamic, working well with my fellow student. Once I just felt settled in the environment, I realized, you know what, I got this, I can do this. You know, I'm not going to be perfect or, you know, amazing right off the bat, but I realized it was achievable for me. And I think that also comes down to a lot of different factors. Whether you know your stuff, you know your content, I'm not saying that I've retained every piece of information I've studied for every exam. But, you know, I've put in the work the past few years and I'm passionate about it, I'm interested in the field. And that's also a side note, you might not necessarily get a field for your placements that you're interested in, but that doesn't mean you should waste the opportunity. You know, you might have to grieve for a week or two, or maybe just a couple of days or an hour if you didn't get the field you're interested in. But look at it as an experience. Push yourself still. It might turn out to be an incredible field you just never heard of, or you heard one bad story, or you had one bad or negative experience in. Keep an open mind is my piece of advice when you're going into placements or fieldwork experiences where you already had this idea that it's not a field you're interested in. Just work hard and see what comes along. That's not going on a t-shirt. Work hard. Okay. So with regards to support and feeling supported, which then can help your confidence, yes, I definitely felt supported. We've had tutorials throughout our placements, sometimes weekly tutorials. I think for our first placement we had weekly or bi-weekly. We had regular contact, and they always encouraged us, if you wanted to reach out and have more support or would like to ask more questions, the door was always open. They were always ready to have a phone call with you. So I have always really appreciated that. And then the last part of your question was, is there a high failure rate and what happens if someone fails? So as I said at the start, I'm not gonna be like saying any stats that I would just be making up, but I think they do tell us, this is my course specific, there may be a couple of people each kind of placement block that don't pass, or they need to stop, or just something happens. So just based on my knowledge, no, there's not a high failure rate, and I don't think you shouldn't compare your beginning to someone else's middle, is that the saying, type thing. I wouldn't get deterred by whatever the rate ends up being, but no, I wouldn't say it's high at all. And the reasons for each individual's, not passing or something like that can be very specific to their circumstances or what they're going through in their life. So I wouldn't be scared off by anything like that. With regards to what happens when someone fails, again, I would speak to the individual university or course staff people for a more accurate description. But I know, from the people I know who haven't passed, they are just joining the cohort behind us. So from my understanding, university is very supportive of people redoing their placement and taking that time. It might be 5-6 months to go work or go do something that they just get more experience. It might just be working with people. They just might need more experience working with people, working with children, working with a certain population. Or they might just need some time because of something happening in their personal life. So from my understanding, it's a very supportive, understanding process of repeating the placement, not necessarily at the same location and setting, but joining then the cohort behind you and graduating with them. And I think that's something that happens somewhat regularly, where people might not pass a course like anatomy or some other course, or something comes up, they have a child, they get sick, or something happens. And I found the university being very accommodating with helping them to develop a study plan and having them just join the cohort behind us and repeat that subject or do that placement again, or somewhere else, but do that placement experience again. So I guess my final don't know how long this is going to be. I guess my final takeaway is it's totally normal and understandable to be nervous, but don't let that deter you from applying. Rod, you got this, and you haven't even started. It's going to be okay. Do your work. Push yourself, not too much. The just right challenge. Hopefully, when you start studying, the just right challenge will mean something more to you. And you can do it. Reach out for support when you need it. Don't leave it too late. I think maybe that's what some people would say they regret, is not reaching out for help sooner. Know what's available to you and reach out when you need it. Also, I'm getting my wisdom teeth out tomorrow. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to film the next week or so. I am seeing the lovely Rosie and Cassie. You might remember them from my pediatric vlogs. I'll see if I can link that somewhere up here. So hopefully my mouth won't be too swollen and bruised, and I'll get a little interview out of those ladies. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next one, but don't forget to leave your questions below, and who knows, you might be in the next video. Like, subscribe, share. See you guys.